who owns each division in the NFL.
Okay.
AFC, NFC, who owns it? And own is a weird word. Does it mean dominates? Does it mean, whatever perspective we want to take it. So we each, I feel like, have our own lane, our own definition of what owning and ownership are. So let's start with the Panthers division right now.
Okay.
NFC South, what's your definition of ownership and who owns the division?
Okay, this is how I define ownership. It's firepower, but in the sense that at the very minimum, a team have 5 guys that can dominate a game, that are game changers. And it's similar to the Fab Five that we're all familiar with, right? It's Jalen Rose, Chris Webber, Juwan Howard, Jimmy King, and Ray Jackson. And they all have different things that they bring to the table. It's leadership, athleticism, toughness. It's that confidence, whether it's quiet or bumptious. Whatever it is, they bring that to the table. So let's get to the Panthers. Starts with Cam Newton. You can't start talking about the Panthers without talking about Cam Newton. Christian McCaffrey, Luke Kuechly, who is the dominant force on the defense side of the ball, and Julius Peppers, who's been in this league forever and has kind of reinvented himself even at that age. And then the X factor, and I'm going to do this for every single team, is Graham Gano, the Pro Bowler. And I know
Graham Gano!
Kicker? Yeah. I'm definitely going with that. 29 out of 30 field goals last season. Graham Gano is my X factor. Those are the 5 guys that are my Fab Five for the NFC South, and that's the Panthers.
The way I define ownership is selfishly, offensively, fantasy perspective. That's what I think I look at when I'm thinking of who owns this division. And the NFC South is absolutely loaded.
Yeah,
you have your Falcons, and Matt Ryan's a great quarterback in fantasy, and you have your Julio Jones, Devonta Freeman. But I'm going to give it to the Saints, even though they get a bit of a ding for not having Mark Ingram for the first 4 weeks. Offensively, they will still be a juggernaut, and that means Alvin Kamara, a bona fide running back 1 taken in the first round, because he's going to get a little bit more love in that first week. Drew Brees, we know, is a fantasy stud, and Michael Thomas could go top 5, top 6, top 7 at wide receiver. This is a guy who had over 100 catches last year. I don't see that changing. I actually think he'll get even more looks in the red zone with the Ingram suspension. We're talking fantasy.
What a division that is. Peter, how do you define ownership?
I look at ownership, and I look at the actual word ownership, and I look at how these businesses are run, both from the front office and even above that in the C-suite. And I look at stability, consistency, and I look at money and how these franchises are run. And I look at the Atlanta Falcons right now. They've got it going on. 5 of the last 8 years, they've gone to the playoffs. So on the field, we know the product is good. But how about off the field? Arthur Blank, the way he runs that business. You have a new stadium. You've got a Super Bowl coming. And you look at the way the stadium used their concessions this year. $2 hot dogs, $2 popcorn, $2 water bottles. All those things, they ranked #1 in a fan survey from all 32 teams about fan experience at the stadium last year. And then you look at the front office, Thomas Dimitroff, Nick Polk, Scott Bioli. They've got it going on. They're loaded on the field. They're a great business off the field. They own the NFC South.
I like that.
I like it, especially in the offseason. I define ownership by personality. Who's keeping us entertained? Maybe it's a tweet, maybe it's an interview. Which team in this division would wear Nate's shirt? Which was Mr. Doubtfire over there? And I love Alvin Kamara. I love Ken Garden. Mike, hello! But I know only one coach in the entire NFL who will break out a broom after a playoff win. It is Sean Payton. It is the New Orleans Saints. Personality for days. Let's not forget, before he was doing this, he's on the sideline doing the skull clap. He's doing that against Minnesota. I don't know if Dirk Cutter is going to the broom from the custodial closet after a win. So much personality for New Orleans. They own it in that regard for me.
That defense, too.
Yes, Cam Jordan, huge personality.
All right, next up, let's go to the NFC East, Nate.
All right.
Who owns that division?
I'm going with the Eagles. Right off the bat, it's Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm going to go with 2 offensive guys, 2 defensive guys. Let's go with Carson Wentz, of course, Zach Ertz, who was one of the long-standing foundation members of that team, Fletcher Cox, and then Malcolm Jenkins on the defensive side of the ball. And then my X factor, I'm going to do this for every team, Nick Foles. I mean, why else would I not talk about Nick Foles, but the simple fact that he's in the Super Bowl MVP, 373, 3 TDs in that TD catch that he had. So he's the X factor because really he can come in and be the best quarterback on that team, even with Carson Wentz on the roster, and he's one of the best backups in the league, period.
There's great fantasy guys in this entire division, but the Giants. It's the Giants easily. They are loaded because you look at how a draft's going to go. Saquon Barkley now is going in the 2nd round. I have a feeling he'll move up and be taken in the 1st round when all is said and done. Odell, obviously a 1st-round guy, so to have guys like that. Evan Ingram was a top 5 tight end last year, so there's a lot of offensive firepower.
No doubt.
And you can draft their defense. So
yes, you can.
Fantasy-wise, they run the division.
Yes, they do. I'm going to go back with Nate with the Eagles as far as ownership and the way the organizations are run. Jeffrey Lurie runs a great program out there in Philadelphia. But look at what they did in the offseason last year, and I guess I want to call it the cojones of that front office. You just look at the names and what they brought in. Nick Foles, Alshon Jeffrey, LeGarrette Blount, Chris Long, Mike Wallace, Haloti Ngata, all these guys. The Eagles keep on bringing in talent. That's a testament to NFC and also NFL reigning Executive of the Year, Howie Roseman, but also his lieutenants. We love Big Joe Douglas. He's a big guy from
Big
the Ravens.
Joe's awesome.
He's got a Super Bowl ring with Baltimore. Now he's the number 2 in Philadelphia. The guy can scout talent. And as far as the organization goes, what greater event last year than the Philly Parade, where we saw the fan base and also the front office really celebrate that victory. We didn't even mention the NFL Draft, which I would say was even more successful than the one that their NFC East rivals, the Dallas Cowboys, hosted.
Hey! We saw so many incredible things in that Super Bowl, so many things from the Eagles, so many things from the Patriots. The most amazing, memorable, hilarious thing that I saw in terms of personality was Landon Collins and Eli Manning on the Jumbotron doing the commercial, up to the Catskills, Jerry Orbach, nobody puts baby in the corner. Guys, that stadium was filled with about 50,000 Eagles fans who hate the Giants. When this thing ran in that stadium, it was standing ovation, cheers, absolutely incredible. Eli, of course, the guy who puts Brady in the corner. I'm giving the Giants the personality. Odell, my second son, I cannot wait to see him this fall.
All have different definitions of ownership, and we're applying it to the divisions in the NFC. So let's move on now to the North.
All right.
You're pretty familiar.
Of course, I am playing for the Vikings and the Lions, and I'm going to be a homer with this one. I'm going with the Detroit Lions. I know you're saying, what, Nate? Just listen, though. We got Matt Money Stafford, right? He's worth every dollar that he got paid. And then we're going to move on to wide receiver Marvin the Martian Zones. I mean, every time he's out there on the field, he's making big plays. And I think people don't really appreciate the fact what Marvin Jones has done since he left the Cincinnati Bengals and what he's been doing with the Lions. And then Darius Slay, I mean, he's been slaying it since he's been that guy to be put in that position to be the #1 cornerback on that team. And then Ziggy, give me one more chance. Ansah is an absolute monster. Picked up football when he was in college. And then my X Factor, Golden Tate. Mr. King Yak himself. I mean, he is a running back when he gets the ball at the wide receiver position. So that right there is my Fab Five, and that's the guys that's going to hold down this team and hopefully be extremely competitive in a competitive division.
Looking at this division from a fantasy perspective, it's like taking out a scale and putting Aaron Rodgers by himself on one and the rest of the assets on the other 3 teams on another and saying, would you rather have Aaron Rodgers or any of these guys? And I'm going to tip the scale in the Vikings' favor here. Vikings offense, you have Dalvin Cook coming back from injury. I think I like the value of the Minnesota Vikings offensively more than all of the other guys. You have to spend a lot to get Aaron Rodgers on your team. Kirk Cousins, you know you can land him in the 8th round, and you know he's going to use his 2 top 20 fantasy wide receivers from last year in Thielen and Diggs. And let's not sleep on the Vikings defense, which is being taken right now in mock drafts. There are mock drafts already in fantasy.
Are there?
Sure. #1 overall or #2 overall next to the Jags.
I'm going to talk about organizations and also ownership. I love what the Vikings have been doing, and I think they've got maybe the most stable organization front office-wise in the entire league. Rick Spielman's a GM. He's been there for years. He got elevated. But George Payton is his #2. People look at him as maybe the best personnel evaluator in the league. And then Rob Brzezinski handles the salary cap. Look at ownership. The Wolf family. They buy the team immediately. New stadium. An amazing week at the Super Bowl. And guess what? On the field, the Vikings were 13-3 last year without their starting quarterback, without their backup quarterback, and without their starting running back in Dalvin Cook.
Good point.
They're only going to get better this year. And I love when a team shows a little courage and says, we were good. We were 13-3. We got to but we weren't good enough. Let's go get Kirk Cousins. Let's go win that race.
Go get him.
I love what the Vikings have, and their fans are incredible. Vikings own the NFC North. Sorry, Packers fans, you're not there just yet.
Give us Vikings for 3.
Personality in the NFC North. I'm going to Detroit. Listen, I love Mike McCarthy in Green Bay, but he's more of a football man. I'm going to go with Matt Patricia. Golden Tate does a flip into the end zone as a walk-off. LeGarrette Blount is one of my favorite players in the league. A guy who calls himself Big Play Slay. And Marvin Jones, not only an incredible player. I don't know if you've seen his act on Twitter. This past week, he pulled Dan Rovell's pants over his head. It was brutal. Showed a lot of panache, and you know I love the panache. The Lions, most
He loves custom cake franchises.
Nothing but cake. That's him.
Cake.
That's it.
He loves the panache.
He does. He loves the panache.
Tweet us at #GMFB, the last division. Only one left, guys. Let's head out to the NFC West.
Yeah, let's go to NFC West, and I'm going to talk about the Los Angeles Rams. I know what you're thinking. All right, Nate, tell me the offensive guys. No. I'm going to give you the defensive guys. We're going Aqib Talib, who was a beast and still in his prime. Marcus Peters, who Kansas City shipped away one of the best cornerbacks. I'm talking about an absolute game changer, can go out there and do whatever he wants on the field, a shutdown corner in this league. We got Ndamukong Suh, who was brought over from Miami. And it's all these guys that are really on the fringe of people thinking, Are these other teams doing what the Patriots do and get rid of guys at the end of their career? No. These guys are clearly still in the prime. And then Aaron Donald, who's going to be one of the highest paid players in the league once he re-ups on that deal. On the X Factor, okay, I'll go back to the offensive side of the ball. It is Todd Gurley. Over 2,000 yards from scrimmage and 19 TDs in just 15 games. Oh, and not to mention, listen, he didn't play some of the fourth quarters of those games because they were blowing teams out. So just keep in mind, Todd Gurley is a monster.
And it's hard not to pick them as the fantasy dominant team in that division, right? You think explosive, you think that. But outside of Gurley, on draft day, I don't know how I'd feel comfortable drafting a Robert Woods, a Brandon Cooks, a Cooper Kupp. It's too much. It sounds like a bit of a fantasy migraine, which stinks because they're the #1 offense from last year. Instead, I'm going to do what Kyle Brandt's going to hate. And I'm going to give it to the Arizona Cardinals because it's a nice, safe, good play. First of all, David Johnson being taken right now, number 5 overall. He's back. We cannot wait for that. And then you have Larry Fitz. It doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball. He has 3 straight seasons with over 100 catches, 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He's so amazing. It's almost like he's only getting better. And Sam Bradford's style actually caters to Larry Fitzgerald. So I'm going to give it to the safe option in the Cardinals. They run the show in the West.
I love it. You know, this is an interesting division for me because the Seahawks have been the kind of class standard of good ownership and well-run teams, but now they're kind of in this rebuilding mode. Couldn't go there. Niners, up and coming. Cardinals, kind of a rebuilding mode. I'm going with the Rams, the defending division champions. And when I talk about ownership, I'm talking about things that are down the pike, things that are going. They moved the team from St. Louis, that was a moribund franchise that no one wanted to deal with, to now being the hottest team in the NFL. In the course of 3 years, they hired a coach who's now the NFL Coach of the Year. They have the Offensive Player of the Year in Todd Gurley. They have the Defensive Player of the Year in Aaron Donald. And look what they've got down the road. A new stadium coming in 2020. They have a Super Bowl in 2022. Then they have the Olympics coming in 2028. It's only going to get better for LA. Stan Kroenke, one of the more respected owners in the league because he's a gambler. He likes to go and do it. Let's make things happen. And the way they handled this offseason, Les Snead, Kevin Demoff, those guys up there in the front office, winning division, losing the wild card round was not enough. Let's get McVay all the tools he can use. And guess what? He is going to be a tool man this year, working on some
Toolman Taylor?
Toolman Taylor, maybe, because they have all the weapons. Now you got to use them.
Listen, there's a lot of personality with the Rams, too, but I can go the other way. The biggest personality in the entire division is Richard Sherman, and he plays for the San Francisco 49ers. And I got to tell you, I like the owner's personality, too. I'm going to go back to the fall of 2016, a very contentious press conference with Jed York where a media member said, well, you've dismissed the head coach, you've dismissed the GM. Why shouldn't you be dismissed? What did Jed say?
I own this football team. You don't dismiss owners.
Yeah, Jed, that is a straight Game of Thrones style quote. There's a moment where Littlefinger says to Cersei, he goes, knowledge is power.
Yes.
Cersei holds a knife to his throat and goes, no. Power is power.
Yeah.
That's power. You don't dismiss owners. Niners' biggest personalities.
For the AFC East, sure.
All right, so mine's is like the Fab Five. It's firepower. It's Jalen Rose, Chris Webber, Juwan Howard, Jimmy King, Ray Jackson. If you're not familiar, just go ahead and look them up. One of the most impactful group of men in sports history. So that's leadership, athleticism, all that swagger. So AFC East. We'll start off with Tom Brady, right? Nobody has more swag than him, whether you want to take shots at him, where he's at the Met Gala, or he's chilling on the field doing his thing. Gronk. You know, Gronk is Gronk, and you love him or hate him, but Gronk is a monster on and off the field. Trey Flowers, the last 2 seasons, led the Patriots in sacks. James White, who is a beast. I'm talking about Mr. Playoff. He might be the new Mr. Playoff in that locker room. And then my X factor is Julian Edelman. Julian Edelman, that 2016 season, I'll remind you guys, 98 receptions, almost 100 catches, over 1,100 yards. And here's another thing that makes him an ultra X factor is that he's top 10 all-time in punt returns. My man averages 11.7 yards per punt return. That's the same as Devin Hester. So my man can do it all. So Julian, get healthy. I talked to you yesterday. He said the process is going good. So just like Joel Embiid, trust the process, bro.
Love that.
Love that.
It's hard to say another team in the Patriots, and I have to go with the Patriots on this one. We'll get to the fantasy one in a second, but real quick on this one with the ownership side of it, Robert Kraft, Jonathan Kraft, Bill Belichick, Josh McDaniels, Tom Brady, their stability, and it's just all in the numbers, guys. 15 straight seasons with 10-plus wins, 5 Super Bowl titles since Belichick took over, and they've been AFC East champions 14 of the last 15 seasons. We can talk about the money they make and the incredible business that's run up there in New England.
Dubs.
This is one of the more, moribund, embarrassing franchises in all of sports for a decade. And guess what? It went back, and now that the Patriots are with the Crafts, it's a gold standard.
In your NFL experience, they have all of the Super Bowl rings, and you go down there and you're like, oh, here's a Patriots one. Oh, and another Patriots one. And here's another Patriots one.
Yeah.
It's wild, totally wild. Even the Super Bowl celebration they have here, What's the first team you think of when you go down there?
The Patriots. You have to. They have no choice. What do you think about when you think about them from fantasy, though? Kate?
Yeah.
See, Patriots, obviously,
tough.
they have two guys that are top 3 at their position in Gronk and Tom Brady. But I look at the whole division. I don't know what to make of the Jets. They're going to have some sneaky value there somewhere. Kenyon Drake going in the 3rd round at running back. He finished the season really well, and they think a lot about him. The Bills, Shady's a guy. I'm going to take the Asteroid.
Which one?
The Asteroid. I want nothing to do. And none of these teams have an edge on anybody as far as fantasy is concerned. So I'm taking the Asteroid because the Patriots are a fantasy migraine always, even though I do like Sony Michel, but now they're talking up Brooks Burkhardt again. So I want nothing to do with any of them. I like Brady, but you have to pay a premium for him. I don't like any one team more than the other, and the Jets might end up having the most value of any of the teams.
Where's Kenny Britt?
Right. You might quote their quarterback, Kay, in this one and say you're pleading the 5th. You know what I mean? That was one of the sound bites. There it is. An X. All right, so we got 2 Patriots and an X. I'm going to go local here, guys, because I talk about personality, the guys, especially in the offseason, that get us going, that get us to tune in. I'm going to speak for the 4 of us that in all the guests we've had on the show, I mean, we've had hundreds of guests. I don't know if there was someone we were more taken with their presence or their personality than Jamal Adams, the safety for the New York Jets.
True.
And I'm going to talk about, yes, a safety in the NFL who's played 1 year, and I'm going all in on that. I love him on Twitter. I love him in the field and on pregame. He had this tweet right after the season when the Pro Bowl rosters were announced that he was not on. He just tweeted, "I will not miss another Pro Bowl." I mean, he put it out there. He is so bold, so big. Look at this. I won't believe that. And everyone's clowning him in the responses. He doesn't care. The Adams era began last year, and the Jets' biggest personality in the whole division. I'll go Jets in that one.
Leader on defense, I cannot argue that. Gronk, a pretty good personality.
Yeah, but off the field. Then he comes in the facility, and it's not Jamal does it 24/7.
That's where you can't pick a Patriot for that. All right, how about the AFC West?
Well, shout out to Jamal Adams. I must say, a friend of a friend saw him in Edgewater, New Jersey, at a restaurant.
What's he
I
doing?
won't say the name. They wrap burritos. And he took pictures with everybody. And I just love hearing that about players that walk into places and take pictures.
Did he get the guac?
We'll see him tomorrow.
Yeah, I think he did.
Oh, yeah?
Extra guac. All right, the cost, though. All right, let's go AFC West. And I'm going with the Chargers. Here's my Fab 5. I'm going Melvin Gordon, Keenan Allen, Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram. In my X Factor, I wanted to kind of rush through this because here's a guy that doesn't get enough appreciation. That's Casey Hayward. No one in the league has more INTs or PBUs, pass breakups, in the last 2 seasons than Casey Hayward. I know it's the Chargers. I know you don't pay attention. Sometimes a slow start might cause you to shift your mind to somewhere else, some other team. But pay attention to what they're doing and what they're building. These guys not only could be the sneaky team within their division, one of the best teams in the entire NFL.
John Elway says they might be the team to beat in the
Right.
AFC West. From a fantasy perspective, it's tough. You've got a lot of depth, a lot of offense, but it's actually not that tough because it's the Chiefs. Offensively, I'm into it. They've got Travis Kelce, one of the top at his spot. Patrick Mahomes is going to use that arm, right? They add Sammy Watkins. They have last year's leading rusher in Kareem Hunt back. I like all of it. And outside of Eric Berry, their defense is so suspect and questionable. At me on Twitter, I'm not buying it yet until I see something on the field. So I think they'll be playing from behind a lot. Add and draft all weapons accordingly.
Love it.
There you go.
I'm going to go with the Chiefs, too, from ownership and front office perspective. It's not often you have a team that has a first-year general manager, a first-year starting quarterback, a first-year offensive coordinator, and people think they're going to get better. And that's what everyone is saying about the Chiefs this season. And it's this feeling in that organization with the Hunt family that you trust the process, right? This is a team that has consistently been one of the best teams in football. 4 playoff appearances the last 5 years. They've won the AFC West each of the last 2 years. And from a business perspective, there might be no more fervent fan base than the Kansas City Chiefs fans. They travel everywhere, and Arrowhead is maybe the best game day experience. The Chiefs, from an ownership and front office perspective, despite the fact they've had so much turnover, they remain consistent, they remain stable. I'm saying the Chiefs are the owners of the AFC West.
I really wrestled with this one for personnel in the AFC West because they got a lot. I love watching Phillip Rivers. He's rubber-faced, one of the most watchable athletes. I love the dad sensibility he has. Von Miller, obviously a rock star in Kansas City. I love watching Andy Reid off-season, in-season. But I'm going to go with the Oakland Raiders, the soon-to-be Las Vegas Raiders, because how are you more watchable than Rivers and Vaughn? It's the Raiders fans. Tune in any Raiders game. I don't care if they're up 60 or down 60. Give me one shot of the black hole, and I'm completely riveted, no matter what their record is, no matter what stadium they're playing in, who their quarterback is. They got a Predator right there wearing a Marshawn jersey. That's one of 32 teams. What's that guy doing? Hey, yo.
Face.
They don't care what their record is with their players. It's always them. It's always there, and it's a very exciting time to be a Raiders fan. What's up, Big Derek Carrhead? I almost said David.
Derek Carrhead?
That's it. So I'll go with Raiders.
Are they the GOAT division for personality?
NFC South is good, but I'm going to go AFC West. I think across the board, there's massive watchability from the players.
Let's move on to the AFC North. Who dominates? Who owns it?
All right, I'm going with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we'll start out with Le'Veon Bell, and I don't need to bore you with numbers, but his versatility, we know, out of the backfield, everything that he can do. And I don't care when people start pushing around the narrative that he's an aging running back. Still at this age, he's one of the best in the league. Antonio Brown, the GOAT right now. And I will say that he is the best receiver in all of football. Juju Smith-Schuster, who is a young, up-and-coming talent. Cam Hayward on the defense side of the ball. And then my X factor, I have to give you one. It's Big Ben. I don't know what else to tell you.
Okay.
I mean, there's oftentimes Big Ben is going to wow you. You'll say, oh, my gosh, that's him, right? He is the statuesque quarterback that can sit in the pocket, guys draped all over him, throwing the ball all over the field. And then there's times where he doesn't look like himself, and he doesn't play like what his name is, Big Ben. He plays smaller than that. And then you move into the offseason where you're like, oh, Big Ben, are you in it? Do you want to play? Are you going to retire? So I feel like as a leader, you have to be that leader in order for guys to follow you. Oftentimes, if your quarterback is talking about, I don't know if I still got it, and maybe retirement's coming, I think players are going to start thinking, are you all the way into this thing? So he's my X factor.
Steelers own the North in fantasy because it is a dream to know that you can draft a guy and when exactly you should start him. When you talk about Antonio Brown, the one receiver to lead receivers in points per game in fantasy, you got to grab him. The second best running back last year, Le'Veon Bell. These are guys that you're taking high and you're paying a premium for, but you're starting. And then Big Ben, who you mentioned, still ended up as a quarterback one last year. And what I like about him is that, you know, you can start him at home.
Yeah, it's true.
No doubt.
Absolutely
I like
can.
that, though, because then I love that you know
what you're doing.
I'm starting at home,
You're right. Yeah.
set it and forget it.
Love it. Also the Steelers for me. And I look at the way that this franchise is run. You have so many teams that every other year there's a new coach, a new quarterback. The Pittsburgh Steelers, since the NFL-AFL merger in 1960, have had 3 head coaches. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin. 3 head coaches in the franchise's history. Think about every other team in the league. Every 2 years you swap coaches.
Yeah.
That, to me, is an organization that you look and you aspire to. It's stability, it's trust, and it's success. Playoff appearances, 8 of the last 11 years. We know about all the Super Bowl rings. We know about the fan base. And I think the way that the Steelers organization handled this Ryan Shazier situation this past offseason and during the year, there is no greater way to support a man and kind of put him through this process and kind of be there by his side. I think everyone in the league looks at the Steelers and says that's one of the gold standards as far as NFL organizations go.
As far as business and winning, no doubt. I am in charge of personality on this one. Is it a clean sweep for the Steelers? No. I'm going to go with an 0-16 team, the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
Let's start with the number 1 pick in the draft behind Baker, Peter. What did they say on it about Baker Mayfield? He's dripping with swag. Was that the quote? Like it or not, he is. Myles Garrett looks like a He-Man figure, and we'll quote C.S. Lewis, a very, very interesting guy. And how about the head coach? Look at the AFC North. Marv, John Harbaugh, Tomlin. Great football man, not exactly vaudeville acts on the sideline. Hugh, you don't know what he was going to say. What was he saying about Baker? He comes in the gym and says, hee hee, right? He's the Pied Piper guy. Hugh is a quote machine, not a win machine necessarily, but I'm in charge of personality, and it goes to the Cleveland Browns.
Love that.
Steelers fans hate you so much, Kyle.
Hey,
I
they
just want
win.
that screen grab right there. If that went
Yes,
viral, I think there would be a great
that's gonna.
response. I love that you go with the Browns.
Yeah, that's a terrible screen grab. Terrible. You guys are killing me. You know what I mean. Tweet the video.
You made your
Tweet the picture.
line at last division, the AFC South.
All right, so you said a quote machine, but not necessarily a win machine. I'm going with a team that last year was both quote machine and a win machine, and that is the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to give you a Fab Five that is literally like the Fab Five. You got Jalen Ramsey, who's like the Jalen Rose out there, going to talk trash. He's going to get in your face, get everybody going. You got Telvin Smith, who's kind of like the Juwan Howard. You know, he's a beast. He gets up there and moves people around, one of the best linebackers in the business. Yannick Ngakoue, you know, who to me is like the Chris Webber. You know, he's going to make moves around the basket. He's going to get to the ball, strip sack master, as he calls himself. A.J. Bouye, who is just a fantastic talent. He's the versatile piece to the puzzle. And then you got the X Factor. The X Factor for me is Calais Campbell on this team. And I didn't go with the offensive guy because, you know, you got Blake Bortles and Leonard Fournette, guys that we adore. And I love Blake Bortles. I might be one of a few guys on TV. But Calais Campbell, 14.5 sacks last year. After leaving Arizona, people said, oh, he's just an old guy. He's not going to do his thing in Jacksonville. Shout out to him. If he does this again, they could have a repeat of how successful they were.
Fantasy-wise, the way I broke it down, Jags defense is number 1 overall. I would draft them, play the premium, fine. You look at the Titans as a better value all around. Derrick Henry, he's not going to get as much love as he should. Corey Davis, not going to get any love. Marcus Mariota, same thing. He'll have a bounce-back year. But as far as like who runs the show, who owns this division, it is the Texans' sweeping victory. DeAndre Hopkins, top 3 wide receiver last year. Deshaun Watson was a top 6 fantasy quarterback before his injury. I cannot wait for him to get back on the field. And sneaky, let me just take a moment for Lamar Miller, because he gets no respect in this league. He ended up a top 15 fantasy running back. I looked at the rankings right now. He's falling outside of the top 25. This happens every year. Grab Lamar Miller.
Okay,
Love that.
Lamar.
From an ownership perspective and the way an organization is built, I love what the Jaguars have done the last few years. They were the joke of the league for many years. 32nd market, all this stuff.
No doubt.
First of all, they own London, so they own the international thing. I think
true.
Shad Khan and those guys have done a great job there.
They're global.
They're a global team, and there's not many global teams in any sport in the world, and they are. And then you look at what their front office looks like. As Dave Caldwell's a general manager, but Tom Coughlin was brought in as kind of the senior VP to kind of help out here and there, but also add championship perspective. It made an immediate dividend. They went right to the AFC Championship game. And I love the coach, Doug Marrone. I feel like they've got everything going right now. And whereas I love what the Titans have going on, and the draft might be in Tennessee, and there's going to be cool stuff there, and the Colts and Texans are great, the Jaguars' trajectory to me is so high up with one of these young franchises that can only get better. It took about a decade for the Jaguars as a franchise to kind of establish itself on the global market.
Yeah.
I think they belong. I think they've made the club. They're in the VIP rope, and they're one of the cool franchises in the NFL.
How much did Tony Khan's dancing play into your decision?
Huge. When you dance like that after a Ben Koyak touchdown in Buffalo or against Buffalo, and you do the thrust.
That's your dirty dancing right there, baby.
it. You're in.
And listen, I'm supposed to talk about personality in the AFC South. Come on, man. Come.
Give it to me. Give it to me.
And then I'm going to do a little bit of this. Come and tackle me with Fournette. We're going to do Marone. We're going to do Lenny Curry, the mayor of Jacksonville, who watches every second of this
Totally
show.
right.
Okay, that asteroid you referred to, if it was coming towards Jacksonville, they'd be like, Mr. Mayor, there's an asteroid coming. I'd be like, hold on, I'm watching Good Morning Football. Peter's giving away jerseys again. I can't get pulled away from this. It's great. We love you, Jacksonville, Swagsonville, whatever you want to call it. They got the personality.
Swagsonville.
Yeah, it's dripping with it.